Welcome. I'm Daniel Minty, a cognitive behavioral therapist, teacher, and writer. How is it that some patients recover in a single session? After decades of panic attacks, they leave their first session and never again have a panic attack. And how is it that some patients work diligently, week after week, month after month, perhaps year after year, to make this same change? The Buddhist canon speaks to this question, as it comes up for students on many spiritual paths as well. A story from the Mumonkan tells of a beginning student who approaches Buddha and says, "I don't ask for words. I don't ask for silence." The Buddha sits quietly. The man then exclaims, "The world-honored one, with infinite loving kindness, has opened the way for me," bows in gratitude and leaves. After he's gone, Ananda, the Buddha's personal attendant and cousin, asks, "What did that beginner realize that led him to praise you?" Buddha replies, "He's like a fine horse that runs at even the shadow of a whip." Buddha's answer refers to another of his parables recorded in the Anguttara Nikaya. A person who hears someone in another village is dying and reflects on life's transience is like a horse that runs at the shadow of a whip. One who hears a fellow villager is dying and reflects on life's transience is like a horse that runs when whipped to the hair. One who hears a family member is dying and reflects on life's transience is like a horse that runs when whipped to the flesh. One who realizes him or herself is dying and reflects on life's transience is like a horse that runs when whipped to the bone. In this parable, Buddha administers a projective test, as a psychologist might show a patient a Rorschach card. What inner content will the patient project onto that inky blot? Taking Buddha's test, many of us project a desire to be the fine horse, to be horse number one. Few of us project a desire to be horse number 4, whose learning to run sounds so very painful and drawn out. So, the root of our suffering is precisely here, wanting to be a horse of different color than the one we are. Commenting on this parable, my first Zen teacher, Robert Aitken, wrote that while comparisons are invidious, if comparisons must be made, I would suggest slow and steady wins the race, as the hare learned to his sorrow. Aitken studied Zen for 24 years before catching that glimpse the beginner caught on day 1. Aitken then went on to be recognized as the dean of Western Zen. Having fought to win every inch of territory, he knew it better than did many of his more naturally gifted peers. In a session with me this week, a patient experienced a dramatic reduction in negative mood and an upsurge in positive emotion from the beginning to the end of our time together. Reflecting on this afterwards, she wrote, "I would say these shifts reflect my feeling seen, appreciated, and accepted. As her therapist, I'm guessing my happiness to sit with her exactly where and as she was that day was contagious. Her note continues, I noticed an urge to reject myself for not being able to change or fix everything today. But if I can actually just stay with myself right here at my current level of resistance, rather than rejecting myself and any methods that might be helpful, everything is allowed to open up from there. Reading her words, I find myself quite optimistic about this patient's recovery. With this attitude towards herself, her prognosis seems very good. Just as patients struggle to accept themselves right where they really are, therapists struggle with this as well. We therapists often reject ourselves for not being skilled enough or patient enough, and so forth. When patients don't heal as quickly as we want them to, we might start pushing and pulling them, looking around for some clever trick to make them change. This rejection of ourselves as healers is almost always counterproductive. It creates a new problem for us and our patients who may internalize our critique of their particular color of horsedness, grow dispirited, and drop out of therapy. In the picture behind me, I'm standing with another of my Zen teachers, Williges Jäger, at his center in Holzkirchen, Germany. Williges once told me a story that illustrates another way forward for we therapists, healers, and teachers. The story of a rainmaker. A village was suffering greatly in the course of a long drought. Crops were failing, animals were suffering, and the villagers becoming increasingly frantic and distraught. In desperation, they sent for a rainmaker who lived some distance away. When the rainmaker arrived, he looked about carefully, then asked for a hut at the edge of the village and food and water for 3 days. In the course of the first day, the villagers noted a shift in their life. There seemed to be a new element in the air. They began seeing things differently and doing some new things. On the second day, clouds began to form. And with growing excitement, the villagers started doing something they'd not done for many months, preparing for the seasonal monsoon. On day 3, the skies opened and the monsoon came pouring down. Delighted, the villagers ran to the rainmaker's hut, called him outside and asked in wonderment, "How did you make it rain?" "I can't make it rain," the man answered. "Then what happened?" the villagers asked. The rainmaker replied, "When I came into your village, I saw disorder all around. So I came into this hut and put myself in order. When I came into order, you came into order. When you came into order, the natural world came into order. When the world came into order, it rained." Thank you for watching this video. If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to this channel. I'll look forward to reconnecting with you soon.